Buonasera. Connection without words. How a video game can be an art experience. The medium of video games is very wide. It ranges from experiences of epic escapist fantasy to these mind-numbing, addictive diversions on your phone. But the video game medium can offer another kind of experience, an art experience. And you might not know about this kind of game. You might know about these kinds of games, but there's another type, and they've been there all along, from the very beginning. They're these games that give you a very different kind of experience. And I've worked on 3 games as a art director and a creative director. Flower, Journey, and ABZÜ. And these games have been called art games. But what is the art experience? What does art do for us? And can a video game be art? Can it give you an art experience? Today I'm going to tell you about the game that I worked on called Journey. This is a game that takes place in the desert. You are a wanderer who is journeying towards a mountain in the distance. And I was the art director of this game, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what it's like. Thank you. Thank you. Journey is a game that is multiplayer. You might, on your journey to the mountain, meet another player and go together. But the game started from one simple question. Can we make a multiplayer game where players form a positive connection, a bond of friendship, rather than fight each other? And everything in this game was built to allow players to form a connection despite their cultural identity. We wanted to make it so that no matter what the player's ethnicity, age, gender, or race, they could befriend each other in this game. The desert is a symbol of desolation and isolation, loneliness. And we chose the desert as a location for this journey because of that. The relationship of players is highlighted. When you find another player in the desert, it becomes more meaningful. And one of the most important things to create a bond between these players was to create the right character design. And the character design was something that I worked on a long time. It went through a bunch of different iterations. And the first thing that we knew we had to do to create this connection was to remove cultural barriers. And the largest cultural barrier is language. So the first character design I did covered the mouth so that he couldn't speak. Journey has no words, no language. But the character needed a mask. We needed to take away more detail to hide the ethnicity of the character. So I started to do designs like this. And I thought that it might be better if the design was more complex, if it had more detail. So I created characters with ribbons and all sorts of things. And we had a very small team, only 8 people at the beginning. And the programmers saw this design and they said, this is too complex. We can't animate this with our team. It's too hard. This character was in the game for 1 day, and we took him out. But my response was, what if I try something even more complex? And they weren't so happy about this. I tried to add more arms and more ribbons, and it was insane. We could not create this character. And what we found was that when we played the game with people, when they saw all these arms, they wanted to use them to punch each other, which is exactly the opposite of what we wanted the players to do, form a connection. So that what I did was I took the arms off. That's why the character has no arms. And this worked so well that I thought maybe I need to take more away. So I tried taking away the legs. I even tried taking away the head. All we had was a kite. And that was too much. So we ended up with this. And this character becomes a vessel for the player. It's a character that's very easy to project yourself into because it lacks ethnicity or gender. And it made it so that players could really become a part of the game. And the desert was also very important in this regard. It's so blank and so pure that it can become an analogy for many kinds of adventures, many kinds of personal journeys. So we had this setting and we had this character, but we needed to tell a story for these characters and these players to experience together so that they could have this bond. And we wanted to tell a universal story, one that anyone could understand and relate to. But we had no words, we had no language. So instead, we had to use color to tell our story. And this is the first version of Journey's script. It was just a sequence of colors representing moods. And I expanded on that to create these sensations of light in the environment, this idea of the atmospheres that you would go through. And this becomes a narrative just by having this sequence of color. You have emotional lows and highs, and it becomes an adventure. Some examples from the game. You have a scene here where we use warm color to make you feel happy. You can see very far into the distance. That makes you feel secure. There's also scenes where we do the opposite. It's very scary and dark, and you can't see far at all. That makes the player physically scared. And as the players go towards this mountain in the distance, they encounter dangers. There's powerful enemies they have to avoid, and environmental dangers, winds and snow, that they have to overcome together. And they have a bond of friendship that's tested. But at the end, once you get past those trials, we reach this clear mountain sky. And I used blue as the sky color here as a reward for the player. I saved this color to the end just to reward the player with this bright breath of fresh air. There were scenes before in the earlier parts of the game where I could have used a blue sky, but I used green instead to save that color for the end, that blue. And at the end of the game, there's a moment where you know that once you walk past this light, it will be over. The journey will end. And one of the most powerful things we chose to do was to let players choose to walk past that point together. And they don't have to. They can wait and they can play with each other before they go into the light as long as they want. So by choosing to end their journey, they accept that the journey is over. They accept this journey for what it is. And it becomes a very powerful narrative told without words. So we had this story, but was what we made an art experience? What is an art experience? What does art do for us? This is me when I was 11 years old, drawing in a museum. And you can see the notebook that I had then. I wrote down the names of all the painters that I loved, and I was drawing this amazing ancient tablet. And this is a drawing I did just a couple years ago at the British Museum. You can see I still do the same stuff. This art has a huge impact on my life, and it was a big inspiration for Journey and other games that I've worked on. To me, the greatest thing that art can do is give us a new perspective. It can help us see the world in a new way. It can literally let us see through the eyes of another person. And what that does is it allows us to draw new connections, to understand our lives, our relationships in new ways. We can learn from art, and it can nourish us with its experience. And when at a time like right now, when the desert is more a symbol of the atrocities of war, and when you think of the desert, it's scary and sad, this is when we need the art experience more than ever. We look to art for this nourishment, to rejuvenate us and to let us remember our connection to each other, to let us see the big picture again. The impact of Journey. When Journey shipped, it was met with critical acclaim. We won a lot of awards with this game, and it was an amazing experience to see that. It won 5 BAFTA awards. It swept the Game Developers' Choice Awards, including 30 Game of the Year awards from different websites and publications. But the most powerful response to the game for us as developers was the response of the fans. This is fan-created art. People were inspired to create pictures, paintings, based on this game and how it affected them. There's entire websites dedicated to sharing this art created completely by fans that still are being contributed today. And it shows you the power of video games as a medium to tell a powerful, powerful story. Games have this unique property of interaction that really brings people into the experience in a unique way. We heard from a teacher who incorporated Journey into their classroom as a prompt for a narrative writing class with 11 and 10-year-old students. And they wrote little poems based on the game as they watched one of the students play. And what they found was that a lot of the students wrote about the game in the first person, even though the game is a third-person perspective. This is one of them. I opened my eyes and instantly fell back because the light was so bright. It encircled me, making the world a haze. It was like I was in a fountain of light. This is written by a 10-year-old playing the game. You can see that these children were so immersed in the game that they felt the story and the environments as if they were there. But the most powerful reactions were those that we heard about in fan mail that was sent to the team. This is an excerpt from a mail that we received. I'm a disabled combat veteran living with PTSD. This game is therapy. I feel better about my life, about the choices I've made. This is from another letter. This game has pulled me out of the deep depression I've been suffering from for almost 5 years. Another person sent us this. My father was diagnosed with cancer. Journey was the most fun I had with him since. He passed only a few months after. I believe we encountered your game at the most perfect time. I am Sophia, I am 15, and your game has changed my life for the better. Receiving messages like this was so impactful to us. This is actually not a screenshot of the game. This is a person who has actually created the costume from Journey, wore it, and took a trip to the Sahara Desert create this moment that affected her in the game. These people found a new perspective playing Journey. They were able to see the world in a new way and form a new connection. They were able to have an art experience by playing this game. And in that way, this video game created an art experience. So thank you.